In this presentation, we will be focusing on the aims of our project and our roadmap to fulfil those aims. But firstly, we undertook descriptive analysis to help us understand the data and reveal the general pattern of responses. On our first look at the data, it was only labelled with nominal or scale variables, so we realised that we needed to redefine these in order to assist with the appropriate tests that we were going to use. Therefore, we have made the following assumptions. Firstly, for overall satisfaction, we have assumed that these variables are scale, as they are continuous and measured on a satisfaction scale. Secondly, for education qualifications, we reclassified this into an ordinal variable. So then, to gain a basic understanding of our data, we analysed the demographics of the respondents by formulating bar charts on SPSS. A bar chart was chosen since it presented an easy representation of the data, which allowed us to visually see comparisons between the different groups within each variable. Thus, from these findings, we came up with a basic description of our data. So we can conclude that there were more females than males that participated in the survey, with 53.3% of the respondents being female and 46.7% being male. The respondents were predominantly in the second lowest age bracket, with 84.2% found to be aged 18 to 25 years old. For their country of origin, the biggest group was Oceania at 54.2%, but Southeast Asia and East Asia also had a significant percentage of individuals, being 17.3% and 19.4% respectively. Most of the respondents' relationship status was single, being at a high 86%, and most were also full-time students, being 49.4% compared to a very low 0.4% being retired. Also, many of these students were in Year 12, being 47.7%, or they were in university studying a bachelor degree, being 34.3%. So for the number of people in a family, a histogram showed normality, where the mean was at 4.16. Then, after all this descriptive analysis, we came up with an overarching aim for our project. Thus, our main aim is to determine what influences customer satisfaction with respect to service representative and customer interaction. This main aim will help us to understand what factors managers need to consider when making hiring decisions and how to exploit these factors in order to maximise customer satisfaction. So in order to make recommendations, we broke down this overarching aim into 5 more specific objectives for which we can conduct statistical tests for our final analysis. So these objectives include, firstly, whether ethnicity affects perception of organisational structure and work values and what implications this has for managers. Secondly, which attributes of service representatives influence the overall satisfaction with the service. Thirdly, whether ethnicity of the service representatives affect customer satisfaction by comparing Asian to non-Asian. Fourthly, whether the perception of a service representative's happiness and attentiveness differs by education levels of the customer. And lastly, to determine which people should be kept in the final analysis to secure the most accurate results. So now, the rest of my group will describe the specific tests that we wish to undertake for these objectives and our reasons for choosing these tests, as well as their managerial usefulness.
In order to achieve our overall aim, our first objective is to discover whether ethnicity affects perception of organisational structure and work values and what implications this has for managers. In order to achieve this objective, we will be mainly working with the nominal variable of country of origin by region and the scale variables of question 1 to 5 from the data. These include 1. Hierarchies are very important in a social corporate structure. 2. Rules and regulations are really important. 3. Groups are more important than individuals. 4. Men work differently from women. Our methods to achieve this include running an independent samples t-test for each of the dependent variables, that is, question 1 to question 5, and running a regression using dummy variables of Asian and non-Asian. The reason of running these tests is to see what kind of work values and aspects of organisational structure are valued in different ethnicities, and more importantly, how much they value each of these variables. This has implications for managers as it would aid them in determining the desired organisational structure for the different countries in which the organisation is operating. Additionally, it would aid them in the recruitment process by determining qualities to look for in potential applicants, ensuring that there is consistency between the values of the employee and those of the country in which the company operates. Firstly, we will run a number of independent t-tests to determine whether Asians and non-Asians differ in the importance they place on the different elements of organisational structure and work values. This test is suitable to achieve our aim as it satisfies the assumptions required to conduct this test, these including that the dependent variable in each test is measured on a continuous scale and that the independent variable consists of two categorical and independent groups. An independent samples t-test will be used to compare the means of the two groups, Asian and non-Asian country of origin, to determine how they differ on each of the 5 dependent variables. By considering the means of both groups, we will be given a rough idea of how much importance the different groups give to each of the variables. This is useful to managers because if the two groups don't differ, it means that the organisational structure and therefore the hiring process can be similar in both Asian and non-Asian countries. In addition to an independent samples t-test, we will also run a regression using dummy variables to determine whether ethnicity affects the importance placed on each of the first 5 variables and questions. We'll need to use dummy variables because country of origin is a nominal variable and regression should be conducted using 2 scale variables. Regression is suitable in order to help us predict the effects of ethnicity on work values. This brings us to our roadmap. First, we will recode the variable country of origin by region into 2 groups, Asian and non-Asian. Next, we will run 5 separate independent sample t-tests on each of the 5 variables concerning work values and organisational structure, which is question 1 to question 5 in the data. If they differ, we will compare the means of the 2 groups on each of the variables to determine who values each of the elements more. Next, we will create dummy variables using the variable of ethnicity. We will then run a regression with these dummy variables and the variables question 1 to 5.
Our second objective we will be exploring for our final analysis is what attributes of service representative influence the overall satisfaction with the service. The aim of this objective is to analyse the specific service attributes to see which factors determine the overall satisfaction. This will improve the company's understanding of the type of service representatives that the company should hire upon expansion, and therefore will provide significant implications for management for the company in question. The statistical methods we're going to employ are correlation, R-squared, and multivariate regression through the use of stepwise. Our rationale for this is, for the purpose of these tests, we are going to assume that the variables are scale as they are continuous and measured on a satisfaction scale. The combination of correlation, R-squared, and multivariate regression analysis will highlight what factors influence the overall satisfaction with the service, and therefore will allow us to gain an understanding of the type of service representatives the company should hire upon expansion. This can be achieved through running a correlation to test for the presence of a relationship, and if there is a statistical relationship found, to show its strength and direction. We will also examine each R-squared percentage in order to attempt to explain the change in overall satisfaction that is explained by a change in each particular service representative attribute. Additionally, a multivariate regression analysis will be run. The results of this will show the individual significance of each independent variable coefficient. The significance will determine which variables are useful in the prediction of our dependent variable, and therefore help us achieve our first objective whilst keeping in mind our overarching aim. This has enabled us to come up with a detailed roadmap to guide our research. We would like to look at correlation in R-squared between the customer experiences with each individual service attribute. For example, a test could be run to see the correlation between overall satisfaction and a personalized customer service experience. If the results show a medium to strong positive relationship, we will know that this attribute is an important influencing factor for increasing overall customer satisfaction. If this is the case, that our R-squared results should support this finding and show the percentage change in the dependent variable that influences the personalized service is responsible for. Not only would this test allow us to gain relevant insights into what service representative attributes improve the overall satisfaction, but it would also highlight any problematic relationships that cause overall satisfaction to decrease. For example, we would expect to find that rude service representatives decrease the overall satisfaction of the service, and therefore would also be an important influencing factor for this objective. However, the strength and direction of the relationship may not be enough to determine the major influencing attributes. This is why a regression analysis will be run through stepwise. Any insignificant attributes will be removed from the analysis for the purpose of data cleaning and improved accuracy of our results.
To achieve our overall aim of determining what influences customer satisfaction with respect to service representatives and customer interaction, our next objective to determine is, does the ethnicity of service representative affect customer satisfaction? We will be specifically comparing Asian to non-Asian ethnicities, since these are the two main regions the company is looking to open branches in. Customer satisfaction will be measured from variables collected in which the respondent had to rate on a scale of 1 to 7, where 1 is strongly disagree and 7 is strongly agree, different aspects of the service representative and customer interaction. These variables are: the service representative seemed rude, gave personalised service, seemed to have a personal human touch, sounded happy, sounded attentive, seemed insincere, and seemed arrogant. These are all scale variables. Respondents were exposed to 4 different situations: an Asian service representative and an Asian customer, a non-Asian service representative and an Asian customer, an Asian service representative and a non-Asian customer, a non-Asian service representative and a non-Asian customer. These situations are measured as one variable in the data and is a nominal variable. Using the 4 different combinations the respondent was possibly exposed to as a grouping variable, we are able to run a one-way ANOVA test to determine whether the situation the respondent was exposed to affected their response. A one-way ANOVA is the most appropriate test in this scenario because the grouping variable is a nominal variable and has more than 2 groups of respondents in the variable, and the issues we are testing are the independent variable and our scale variables. We can also run a repeated measures ANOVA test because we are testing more than 2 groups of people repeated times against more than one scale variable. To determine whether the ethnicity of the respondent affects how they perceive the quality of the customer service, we will run an independent t-test. This will determine if the ethnicity of the respondent affects how they respond to the situation presented in the survey. An independent t-test was selected as the best test to run because the grouping variable, ethnicity of respondent, is a nominal variable, and the variable related to respondents' attitudes towards the overall satisfaction of the service is a scale variable. In this case, we will recode respondents' ethnicity into Asian and non-Asian. This is in line with the company's intentions to open branches in these different regions. Therefore, these groups will be mutually exclusive, and thus an independent t-test is the most appropriate test to run. From the analysis of these tests and the knowledge gleaned from the analysis, we will be able to determine whether or not the company should make different hiring decisions in different branches, that is Asian and non-Asian branches, to maximise customer satisfaction.
To obtain our overarching aim of what influences customer satisfaction with respect to service representative and customer interactions, my objective aims to make the data more accessible and accurate. I will be discussing Objective 4, which is to determine which people should be kept in the final analysis to secure the most accurate results. The methods we'll be using are based around data cleaning techniques. The methods include data manipulation and filtering, and detecting the outliers and removing them when appropriate. Our first method of data cleaning will be data manipulation and filtering. We will separate respondents according to the question. Please press strongly disagree if you are paying attention. We will use data manipulation to identify which respondents answered correctly and which ones answered incorrectly. The rationale for using this method is based around the ease to which it allows us to filter through and separate the responses. We use the select cases command because this helps us to isolate a subset of cases within a data file. This will allow us to identify the ones that did not meet the specified selection criteria. As a result, we are able to exclude the responses that did not click strongly disagree. This will prevent them from being included in further analysis and from skewing the results. Data manipulation and filtering improves the accuracy of our findings, which will increase the reliability and the validity of our conclusions. This is because filtering out these respondents from our analysis can help us determine which respondents are paying attention and answered the survey correctly. Our second method of data cleaning is detecting the outliers. We use descriptive statistics and analyze the output to determine if there are extreme scores influencing our mean. By identifying The outliers we can deduce whether they should be kept in the analysis or if they should be taken out because they are skewing the results. Paying attention to the outliers will allow us to see if data has been incorrectly entered or incorrectly measured. We will analyse the descriptive statistics comparing the trimmed mean value and the original mean value to determine whether any outliers are a problem. Our decision to remove or keep the outliers will be based on whether they affect assumptions and whether the outlier creates a significant association. By filtering through outliers, we will be able to improve the accuracy of our results, and it will reduce the variability in our results. Our method will help remove any data that is misleading due to entry mistakes.
For our final objective, we're looking at whether the education level of the customer affects their perception of the service representative customer service. So our objective is, does the perception of service representative happiness and attentiveness, so two different tests, do they differ by the education level of the customer? Now, here we decided this was an important objective because we're dealing with different countries which will have different levels of education. So for a more developed region in Asia, it's likely that a larger number of people will be in the categories where they are, educated beyond year 12, even university, etc. So if we find that there is that relationship where this influences their perception of the service representative, it will impact the manager's hiring decisions because they might need more skilled service representatives in these countries. Looking at education, we note that it is an ordinal variable, and this is because the 5 education categories can be ranked. The highest level is the postgrad, and we have coded this as 1, followed by bachelor's as 2, diploma and vocational is 3, year 12 coded as 4, and below year 12 is coded as 5. So clearly there is a rank here, so that's why it's an ordinal variable. Looking at the happiness and attentiveness attributes, which are rated for the service representative, we know that these are scale variables because both are rated on a scale of 1 to 7. 1 indicates that the customer strongly disagrees. So for example, if the customer said the happiness is rated as 1, it means they strongly disagree that the service representative is happy. And 7 means that they strongly agree that they're happy. The method we're going to use is ANOVA because ANOVA is suitable for scale variables, and we know that we're dealing with the scale variables happiness and attentiveness. Now, our hypothesis, the null hypothesis, is that the perceived level of service representative attentiveness does not differ by the education level. So this would imply that the means for each education group are the same. The alternate hypothesis is that the level of perceived service representative attentiveness or happiness, depending on the test, differs by the education level of the customer. So the means will be different here. In terms of the steps we take to do this, let's walk through the roadmap. So first of all, on SPSS, we'll go to Analyze, then we compare means, and we do a one-way ANOVA. We select our dependent variable. In this case, it's the rating of attentiveness or happiness. And then we select the independent variable, which is the education level. Now in our table, if we find that the ANOVA is significant, we need to do a post hoc test because this will tell us which groups are different from each other. So here we will click Select Post Hoc and we'll do the Tukey and Tremaine test and then compare the table to see which groups are different.
As you can see, a variety of tests will be needed. Each one depends on the variables being analysed, which is what we have talked you through today. They have significant implications for the management of the hiring requirements in each country. Thank you for listening to our presentation.